flashes, night sweats, rapid heartbeat. If you're having that, you might have an increased amount of. The assumption that carbohydrates are bad for you is a wrong assumption. We need carbohydrates. We need fats in our body.
Stephanie Shaw is a health and wellness speaker, menopause advocate, and the host of Hello Hot Flash podcast, where she teaches midlife women how to manage their weight, sleep better, have more energy, and slow the aging process.
All choices that you make, whether it's HRT or the whole food route, there's a formula that should be designed specifically for use.
After 18 doctors, you take control and eventually help others do the same.
I can't really fault the doctors because what was going on was different every day. What I did was, and that's when I started to see the transformation.
What's your approach to nutrition?
What we're doing is having conversations about what the food is actually doing to you, and then helping you make some really positive choices with what you're eating.
Expert care for menopause and sexual health, now just a click away. Virtual Care by Her MD offers longer visits, personalized treatment plans, and trusted providers, all from the comfort of home. Learn more at hermd.com. This episode was sponsored by Her MD.
So after 18 doctors, I saw that, did a double take, because usually when patients get to me, they say 5 to 7. I said, you've got Oprah beat, because I think she was around that number 2. I think the most I've heard up until now is about 9 doctors, which is still ridiculous and just tells you about our healthcare system particularly for female patients. 2 world-renowned clinics, $20,000 out of pocket, which just makes me so angry first thing in the morning. Because my whole life I have fought for accessible, equitable care, especially because I nearly lost my mother when she was only 45 years old. But today's guest took her own health into her own hands and sparked a movement for midlife women everywhere. And I have nothing but deep respect for that. We can choose to either live with the status quo or smash it. When traditional medicine offered no answers, she created her own. And now she's guiding women through menopause with knowledge, community, and empowerment. I'm introducing to you all Stephanie Lynn Shaw, who has had this journey of a debilitating healthcare crisis and has now become a certified nutrition coach and the founder of Hello Hot Flash. And her mission is to educate and empower midlife women through holistic approaches. Thank you so much for being here today with me. I'm so excited.
Having me? So am I.
So your healthcare journey was both challenging but transformative. And talking to women over, 2 decades, that's what you learn, that healthcare experiences are so much more than just what happens in that room or that minute or 5 minutes if we're lucky. But it's truly transformative. Can you share how navigating through numerous doctors and doors and treatments led you to take control and eventually help others do the same?
Yeah, and thank you so much for having me here this morning. This is awesome. You just told part of the story, and I sometimes when I repeat that story out loud, I'm like, oh my gosh, 18 different doctors. And I'll be honest, I stopped counting at 20,000. I'm like, okay, that's a number I can live with. But it was very traumatic. Trying to understand what was going on in my body. And I can't really fault the doctors because a lot of what was going on was different every day. So I wasn't just having hot flashes. I was having floaters in my eyes. So I go see an ophthalmologist, or tingling in my hands and feet, or rapid heartbeat, see a cardiologist. So I was also changing the doctors that I was seeing each day as well. Part of what I did was I had to step back from what was really going on. And I will say this over and over, I had to get to the root cause of what was going on. And that's when I started to see the transformation. So there was a lot of stress in my life. There were problems with the way that I was eating. I wasn't moving my body appropriately. So I started to educate myself. That's how I ended up with the nutrition coaching. I started to lean in on what my doctors were saying. Also, I went the holistic path, like what are some other methods that I can use? And then I started to lean on the Word of God. Like once I started to realize that there was actually a bigger plan out here, I started running with it. I always wanted to do something in the food space, whether it was a vegan shop or nutrition coaching or whatever. So when I kind of made that switch in my mind, okay, I haven't done what I plan to do. I'm going to use this as an opportunity to launch something else. That's how I was able to change the trajectory of how I thought about going through this menopausal time in my life.
And I love what you said, and I agree with you so much, because even as a menopause educated physician and an advocate, I continue to learn so much, and we're learning so much collectively because there's such a data gap, there's such a gender gap. But we know now that estrogen affects us basically in every cell of our body. And so I couldn't agree with you more. You were going to other subspecialists because menopause symptoms can present so differently. You know, insomnia for some, sexual side effects for some, a difference in headaches for some, hot flashes. You know, everyone is different. For me, it was verbal auras and problems with my speech. And my neurologist is the one who actually started me on hormone therapy. So that's why, you know, menopause and women's healthcare is so much more. I don't know if you've heard the term bikini medicine. You know, it's not just the parts of our body that are covered by a bikini. Our doctors need to be trained, not only head to toe, but in all of our life phases, not just adolescence or fertility, but, you know, perimenopause, menopause, and postmenopause. So you've spoken a lot about feeling dismissed, and I hear this all the time. I actually dubbed a term the invisible patient because I feel like that's what our healthcare system has done to women, leaving them without choice, education, dismissal, and you felt confused during this healthcare crisis. Looking back, what would you tell that version of yourself today with this woman today who's sitting with me? What would you tell that woman?
It's not me. I was not confused. All of the things that I was feeling in my body, the, you know, smelling of maple syrup, sometimes the smelling of gas, the auras, all of that thing, all of those things were really going on in my body. So it wasn't me. It was what I had to decide to do with all of those things that were going on. I'd also tell I was quite angry with a lot of medical practitioners at that time as well, being honest. But I have to also tell myself not to be. Now I understand more than ever how the medical system works. And I was getting passed along, not because someone didn't care or wasn't concerned, but perhaps that was just not their specialty. And so if I presented differently every time I went to a doctor, of course they would try to get me to a specialist. So one, it's not you. Perhaps it's not your doctor. Also, and to listen to yourself. I also initially, I knew something was going on, but I kind of dismissed what was going on. I didn't pull all of the symptoms together so I could get a clear understanding of my body. So I'd also tell myself that what you are feeling is true. You need to honor what you are feeling and then help yourself get to the root cause, because no one else can really do that for you.
And I love that because that's what I tell women all the time. No one knows your body better than you do. Your doctors may know the anatomy and the names of the vessels and all of that. But when you feel like something is wrong, you need to listen. It's your body's way of telling you something is not right. And you need to listen to that voice and really advocate for yourselves or yourself. What was the moment that you realized that your own story wasn't just yours and that it was happening to a lot of other individuals as well?
I'm so sad to say that took quite a while. I got the symptoms really presented in starting March 23rd of 2017. I was walking down the street in New Orleans. By the end of the night, I ended up in 2 different ERs. So that's kind of when it started, but it took a while for me to understand this wasn't just about me. So after the, nutrition coaching, and I started talking to more women, I'm like, wait, that happened to me too. That happened to me too. So when I launched my very first podcast and started once again having those conversations, interviewing women, I found there were so many similarities. And one of the the gaps I think of me not recognizing those similarities was this was not a conversation. It wasn't a conversation in my home, in my church, in my community, with my friends. No one was talking about menopause and the way that this can impact your body. Now, I'll be honest that I don't, the more I study and research, I don't think 100% of what was going on with me was perimenopausal, but I think the changes in my estrogen and so forth caused the stress. And then there was all these outside stressors that made it a lot worse. So it actually took a while for me to understand that I wasn't alone in all of this. And I think what's so powerful now, sometimes I'll get on the bandwagon of, the celebrity thing, and also they're throwing all these different products and so forth at us. But I try to step back and say, at least we're talking about it now, when, even in 15, 16, 17, we weren't having these conversations. So I think it's really important to understand that the conversations are super impactful. And as moms, as women, as aunts and grandmothers, we don't need to have these conversations with our 45-year-old daughter. We need to have these conversations with our, daughter that's 11, 12, 13. So because the more they're caring for themselves earlier, the better it will be when they get to this part of life.
You've said so many things in that. So I couldn't agree with you more. I think some of the scariest stuff that is going on with us, or the symptoms, isn't the actual symptoms, but it's the not knowing. So the educational piece that's lacking, like when my speech started going and then I went garbled and lost my voice, in my head, I was like, am I having a stroke? Do I have a tumor? Because I didn't know that you can have verbal auras with perimenopause. Yes, you heard me correctly. I'm a menopause expert, and I did not know that because I was not taught and did not learn. And apparently the neurologists weren't sharing their data. I say that jokingly. They're more than willing to, but most neurologists and gynecologists, unless something's really wrong, aren't speaking to each other. But they should be. And that's why we have all this data coming out now about the menopausal brain and the changes that are happening. So I love that. I'm a huge advocate about, advocating earlier for your health. And then the second thing I really locked onto is storytelling. I think there's a lot of noise in the space. I think people falsely think that there are too many solutions out there. There's actually not. And I love the fact that there are so many storytellers from so many different walks of life, whether they're politicians or researchers or investors or founders or patients, because I was a former patient too, who are sharing their stories so that we find solutions that work for everybody. Because some women are going to want to find, food as medicine. Some women are going to want hormones. Some women are going to want a direct-to-consumer product. My calling is that they have true, authentic stories that they can lock onto and find community, and that they can find evidence-based care. And through this, while they're navigating this journey, that they don't feel alone. So in talking about community and locking on to that, you've built this incredible supportive community for women navigating menopause. What gaps, we've talked about some, but what are the gaps that in healthcare that you saw that you were really aiming to fill with this incredulous community that you've built?
Yeah, so I think the gap was community in and of itself. So when you go to the doctors, they give you a diagnosis, and you go home, you're like, wait, what do I do now? So I'm perimenopausal, and they're telling me to take HRT. Like, I need a friend. I need someone who's already been there, gone through that, or is currently going through it as well. So I think one of those key gaps is around the diagnosis, but then no support. Another gap can be sometimes doctors will provide support, but it may not be the support that you need. So for example, you just mentioned some women may want to go the HRT route. Some women may want to go the whole food route. I chose whole food for myself, just because I can't even take like a kid's Claritin. So I automatically knew it was not an option to take any medicine. So that was the route I chose. How do you get with like-minded folks, or how do you have that option to understand what that route actually looks like? So whole food isn't just about eating whole food. You need to understand your macros and your micros and nutrients, and you need to understand what not only was quote unquote good, because a banana may be good for one person, but it may not be good for you. So that's kind of the community that I've built, where those conversations are actually happening, where all choices that you make, whether it is HRT or it is the whole food route, you need to actually make the choice that's right for you and for your specific body. There's a formula, but that formula it should be designed specifically for you. So that's part of how we come together in a community. Again, just making sure that women get the exact support that they need, and helping women get to the root cause of what is going on.
So is that how you approach nutrition? Because I feel like in medical school and residency, everything that I learned has now been debunked, right? We never learned about intermittent fasting. We never learned about macros and micros. We never. In fact, most of the things that we learned to recommend, we're finding are maybe not applicable or best for everyone. And truly, it needs to be a curated, individualized approach to food. And I truly believe that food is medicine, because I've seen the opposite, that unhealthy food, I'm not going to say bad food because I'm a foodie and I love to eat, but unhealthy foods or foods that aren't nutrient dense can actually accelerate disease. We know this.
Mm-hmm.
And we know that we metabolize food very differently in perimenopause and menopause, and our whole gut microbiome changes, and even our ability to process alcohol. People are always asking me this, but how do you take, all the things that we've learned, particularly in this country, about food, and really kind of turn that around and teach members of your community about food? Like, what's your approach to nutrition with them?
Yeah, so I usually start with, what do you like and love, and where are you at? What's your mental space right now? How much can you handle to get to that next step? And with questions like, why are you where you are? Why, if you're a foodie, great. I'm a foodie as well. But if you sit there and eat 2 bags of candy every single night, like where is your mental space? How are we going to get you to that next step of finding out, or telling yourself or encouraging yourself that you need to eat in a different manner? And then I open it up. I think everyone should eat the way that they want to eat. But
I love
with that
it.
being said,
Yes. So if I came to you and said my food groups are chocolate, cheese, and wine, you'd be okay with that.
I was just going to say, with some caveats. So I mean, I love to eat, really rich, good food, but there's different ways to do that. So instead of using a cream sauce, maybe you're using more plant-based. You understand what I mean?
Yes.
Like making those types of adjustments. The assumption that carbohydrates, fats are bad for you is a wrong assumption. We need carbohydrates. We need fats in our body, and for our brain health, for our heart health, and so forth. So getting people to understand what is healthy, how you can make that adjustment from that high fat, really rich food to still eating stuff that's really, really good, and kind of tastes like that too, because your taste buds will change. Also, so there's a lot of research, around, or I don't even know if it's legitimate research. There's a lot of talk around, how much protein you should get. Well, I also think that everyone is an individual. So part of the work that I do is having that individual conversation with people. There's a lot of adding and subtracting. There's no one diet or one way. You have to understand what is going on in your body, what is going to work for your body, and what is going on in your digestive system as well. Things like, and sometimes things we don't think about or may not think about. So sugar, for example, we talk a lot about that. So hot flashes, night sweats, rapid heartbeat. If you're having that, you might have an increased amount of sugar in your body, or you're eating a lot of things like that. Bad fats, seed oils, processed foods. All of this is causing chronic inflammation in the body. So what we're doing is having conversations about what the food is actually doing to you, getting your mind in place, understanding what you like, and then helping you make some really positive choices so that you're not getting rid of all the fun, good stuff, but you're making better choices with what you're eating.
Inflammation, not good. Most people think, oh, it's just swelling. But actually, we know that chronic inflammation increases our risk of cardiovascular disease and some cancers. So we not only as women don't like the look and feel of being inflamed, but it actually can accelerate aging and disease processes like cardiovascular disease or heart disease, and also cancer. So nobody wants that. You deal with a lot of individuals, and they're coming to you and obviously talking to you about personal things, because I think, your food intake and your choices and your, frankly, vices, like I told you, cheese, chocolate, and wine. And no, I don't eat that all the time. I eat usually very healthy, but I would like a world where I could have more of those things. But what is something that comes up over and over again that actually still surprises you today? Or does nothing surprise you?
Yeah, no, I didn't know. And I guess it doesn't surprise me as much as it did before, but just the term I did not know. I am leading a small group, and there's men and women in the small group, and I asked one of the women, I'm like, okay, just tell me what you eat, and we're going to break that down and make some changes for you. And the amount of bacon fat but she was putting the bacon fat in vegetables, so she was eating vegetables, or she ate a ton of vegetables for every day, I'll just say, but they were either fried, bacon fat, lots of oil, and so forth. And I looked at her. She honestly did not know that these things were hurting her. And that's what surprises me. Women don't know that, just like you said, the different types of aura. They don't understand the connection of the vaginal atrophy, and it's not about you, and lack of desire. It's not about you. It's what's actually going on in your body. We weren't taught these things in school. A lot of times we weren't taught these things in our home, either because our parent didn't know or because it was just something you didn't talk about. So I'm still surprised that what women don't know. But what I'm excited about is women my daughter-in-law's age, like, they'll just say anything. I'm like, hold up. But it's all good because they're having their conversations now in their 20s and early 30s. That's going to help them have the right conversations with my grandchildren and their nieces and nephews, and help them navigate menopause differently.
Oh, yeah. And, I get questions about nutrition and vaginal health all the time, and it shocks me. And in a good way, other generations of women, I had to kind of tease and test the waters and kind of get them to talk to me about their sexual health, about their gynecologic health. The newer generation, they are empowered, and they'll ask me things like, is it true that if you eat pineapple, your vagina smells better? It's like, well, I think most of that data is kind of overhyped. But yeah, they're not afraid, and good for them, because fear is another barrier to accessing education and getting answers from your providers. So we talked about storytelling in the beginning, and, putting yourself out there and giving other women, the power and the bravery and the confidence to come forward. But how did you overcome that and have the confidence to show up so authentically and so transparently?
So some days I don't know if I have that confidence to show up that way. Just being transparent and honest.
I think we all have a little bit of imposter syndrome, though, right?
Yes. Some days I kind of think that's good. I don't know. But I made some choices about how I showed up. Like, I wanted to show up how your girlfriend would show up if you popped over her house. She probably doesn't have on a pair of 5-inch heels, hair and makeup done, you know what I mean, in her glamorous Gucci outfit. She's probably sitting there with a bun on her head, like I have a bun on my head, maybe needs to have her hair dyed or colored this week, and so forth. So I tried to make, again, a conscious decision to show up that way, because I wanted to be a real woman, a granny. I'm almost 56, grandma too. I don't have a cool granny name. I want Granny as my name. I sew. I'm starting to learn how to cross stitch. So, so I wanted to be a real woman. And I'm not saying those other things aren't real. I wanted to show up the way that The women around me have shown up. And I think when people can see that barrier broken down, like, oh, I don't need to always look this way, be this way, act this way, talk this way, they can then feel more seen, more heard, and more loved. And that's what I want to show for the women that come into my community. I really want to build true, lasting relationships with people, not just a transactional relationship, but a relationship to help them understand that they're not alone. Because that's the way I felt during my family loved me. They took great care of me and so forth. But from that woman to woman friendship thing, I still felt isolated in all of this. So I don't want other women to feel that way. That's why I built a community around a community of like-minded women.
And I love that, because one of the things that my medical education tried to train out of me was how relaxed I was, how approachable I was with my patients. Like when they were going to sleep for surgery, I would hold their foot. I mean, obviously with their permission, because I wanted them to go to sleep like soothed, not stressed, and like with all the equipment around them. And I remember one of my mentors taking me back saying, you're the doctor, you have to have this air of arrogance. And I was like, no, we're partners in this healthcare journey. And I want to do this with them, right? For them to have bodily autonomy, for them to have choice. But it's so funny to me. Imagine if I would have listened to them and became this like distant, cold, just authoritative figure. Like you can have the information, you can know the data, and you can break it down for people so it's digestible and understandable. So I love that approach, because that's the approach I took every day in rooms with patients, or if I was, treating them via telehealth, because you're asking people to share very personal healthcare information, intimacy information, anatomical information, mental health information, and generally just overall how they're feeling and where they feel like they're missing the mark, whether it's at work or in their relationship. And so I think if you don't show up authentically, then you're not going to get what you need out of that encounter. And that's what I always told patients. If I show up that way, you're not going to feel comfortable being honest with me. And then I won't have the data I need, to truly take care of you.
I don't mean to interrupt you, but I just interviewed another physician on the podcast, and she said the same exact thing, but she made that decision to show up differently, even though her mentor was like in her ear. She stressing her out about how stoic she needed to be. And I will let you know, as a patient, I so appreciate that, because those are the doctors that helped me get through. Because when they came in stoic, I'm like, I'm really sick, I don't have time for you. And what I felt like was an attitude, or they were being judgmental. So I just wanted to say that I really appreciate that you take that perspective with your patients. And I think patients need to understand that there are doctors out there like you, and that's who you need to look for when you need support.
What I've done, you created community and you took it one step further. What I did was, started Her MD University. And in it, not only did I teach them about the symptoms and the disease state and, treatment options, no matter where the patient is in their journey, like meeting them where they are, not saying this is the only right answer, but also clinical pearls on and sensitivity and how you approach these conversations. Like, don't be typing at your laptop. Don't have your hand on the door. That's doorknob medicine. No one's going to share anything personal with you if you're doing that. And so, I think we both did that. We learned from things that didn't feel good and pursued a different path. So thank you for saying that. We're going to take the 7th inning stretch. So we're going to do some rapid fire questions. Okay. I love to travel. So my nickname is Wanderlust. Dream travel destination. Where are you going and why?
Destin, Florida, because I haven't seen family in a long time, and it's one of the places I love to go.
I love the beaches down there. I go about an hour away from there. The beaches of 30A. Yeah, that's like my favorite little.
I've never been there.
You need to go. Well, I mean, it's the same blue water, the white sand. I feel like it's like one of the best hidden treasures, but it's a little bit quieter than Destin, but that same gorgeous landscape. You should check it out next time. So the beaches of 30A, but I would go right there with you, friend. So I love to laugh. I think laughter is one of the best. I mean, I truly believe it's medicine. And I laugh every single day. My husband is like, I love it. Like when I hear it, and he's a cancer doctor, so he deals with a lot of heavy stuff. And he's like, I love your laugh, just makes me laugh. What's the last thing that made you laugh? Like belly laugh, like you were crying laughing.
So I can't tell you what it was because I don't know how.
Now I really want to know.
But it came from, so the person that can make me belly laugh, cry tears is my youngest son, my 24-year-old son. I actually called him the other day because I was like, I just need a conversation. And I'm like, hey, entertain me. He's like, what? And the response he gave me was I'll just say beyond hilarious, but I can call him and say, entertain me. And an hour later, I'm like crying, my stomach hurts. So it's the conversation I would have with Caleb. And I won't tell you what those would look like.
No, but I love that because I have a 24-year-old son as well. And he's my oldest. He just turned 24 last week. He had a birthday, but I love that. And he makes me laugh like that too. So I can only imagine where that conversation went because his game when I used to go visit him in college was, what can I say to my mother as a gynecologist and sexual healthcare expert that will make her blush? And his and all of his frat brothers tried, but they never got this girl to turn red. They didn't. Nope. They tried. I'm like, 2 decades. I've heard it all. It's not going to make me blush. But A for effort. That's what I said. That's your A.
Yes.
Describe Hello Hot Flush to me in 3 words.
Informative, compassionate. I think educational and informative can be the same, but I still want educational. Just still keeps popping to my mind, so I'm gonna just use that.
So you said educational, informative,
and compassionate.
Compassionate. I love that. All right. Since we've talked about food, if you could have anyone for a dinner companion who is a wellness expert, and that could be, all walks of life, who would it be and why?
I think Dr. Amen, because I actually know someone that he cared for, and I know where she was at, and I know where she is now. She was only 8 years old. She was a younger child. So it would be him because I was like, what did you do? How did you get this type of knowledge? Where does all of this come from? So, and give me some wisdom. Plus, I want to interview him on my podcast.
Throw it out there. I love it because that's when things happen, when you throw things out there. So you've emphasized community and advocacy, particularly in medical settings. But what action items have you given them to make sure that their voices are heard and their concerns are addressed? What actionable piece of advice have you given them?
To the folks that work with me?
Yes.
So when you're going into the doctor's office, I think forcing the doctor to listen is, force can be a hard word, but I think that's really important. Quick example, yesterday I was in the office with my mom with a cardiologist. He picks up the phone and has a 2-minute conversation with not another patient. It was a personal call. So I had to kind of interrupt him. I was nice. I'm like, hey, let's get back to the beta blocker like that. And he looked at me and I looked at him. So being willing to respect the doctor, but being willing to take control of the conversation because this 2 minutes is about you. Correct any errors. So don't be afraid. Like he also made a comment in a voice recording that really wasn't what we just said. And I did everything being completely polite, but look at your records. If you hear something and it's not exactly what you said, correct that error because that tiny thing could make a difference. Yesterday, it made a difference for my mom. He actually ended up changing her medication because I was able to correct that. So ask about root causes, take notes prior to the call, and then If the medical systems don't talk, 'cause they don't in this part of Ohio, Cleveland Clinic and locally don't normally talk, take the reports with you. So those are things that, in order for a patient to advocate for themselves, those are kind of the steps that I tell them to take. Listen, and then bring someone with you who can advocate for you if you don't feel comfortable doing that.
I love that. Midlife has long been treated like a quiet, invisible phase, which is crazy to me because with increasing life expectancies, women are going to spend about 40% of their lives in menopause. Think about that. And there's 1 billion individuals in menopause as of 2025. What's one way, I'm just going to give you for one way, that you can think that we can rewrite the narrative for the next generation of women following us?
Give them the right to have a conversation. So let them know it's okay to talk about what is actually going on in their bodies.
Love that. What does empowerment look like for a woman in her 5th decade?
So I think a woman needs to answer that for themselves and ask themselves, how do I feel? What is making me feel empowered? For me this morning, I woke up, first thing I did was cleared my calendar for next weekend and decided I'm going to go get my grandkids. I've been working for 30 years. That was empowering, not to have that corporate job that was kind of telling me what I needed to do. But for someone else, it might be a move, changing careers, learning to ski, swim, play the piano. I think sit with yourself and ask yourself what really would make you feel empowered. It just maybe having that conversation with that doctor.
How do you think women were told their 50s should look like with the way you and I grew up? What did you picture? Because I always talk about the Golden Girls, and then I'm like, look at Michelle Obama, look at Jennifer Lopez, look at all of these strong, Naomi Watts, women in their 50s or who are navigating menopause. But what do you think, empowerment or our 50s were told were going to be as we were growing up?
Yeah, in my mind, we just got quiet and kind of moved to the side. And it just may have been my culture. It may have been the people that I was around, but it felt like you became more invisible.
Yeah.
But yeah, in all reality, you became more important as you began to age, because that's your wisdom is what kind of guided the entire family. But to me, it just felt like as they aged, women became more invisible.
Yeah, you have this grandmother effect. You have so much wisdom to impart. You're usually not raising your babies. You've reached the, pinnacle of your career. You're usually not worrying about pregnancy anymore. You have a little bit more financial freedom. I'm like, why are we disappearing? I'm going to be 50 in July. I'm like, I'm just getting started. That's crazy to me.
56 in July. So yeah, and I feel like I'm just getting started too. My husband asked so when do you plan to retire? I'm like, what? No, it's just start. Now I know what to do. Fine.
Yeah. I'm like, I'm just figuring it out.
Yeah.
All right. So imagine a world, and I actually can see this revolution happening because I've been in rooms with investors and politicians and women and celebrities and doctors and researchers, all of us collectively from different walks of life, I think are finally raising our voices collectively together. But imagine a future where midlife care and health is actually prioritized and understood. To you, what does that world look like?
Baseline testing would include more than just men, more than just middle-aged Caucasian men as well. Do you know what I mean? Baseline testing would actually be on
everybody.
People.
Yes.
Research. Yep. Medical doctors would be required to have a minimum of a year's worth of training in herbs, food, natural medicine, and a better understanding of holistic medicine. Lobbying for you not to have nutrition would be gone. You wouldn't be able to do that. Gynecologists would be trained on menopause. Insurance companies would, let you take supplements, and it would cost you $200 out of pocket every month. All of that would, honestly, I consider common sense. Common sense things would happen, and I think that would change the trajectory of healthcare.
Yeah, because in this country, unfortunately, we chase disease, we treat disease. People are incentivized, I think, almost to keep people sick. And so, teaching people about longevity and choice and preventing disease, I think, is really where we need to move in all phases of life. And so I think today we've talked about advocating for yourself, particularly in medical spaces, that food is medicine and nutritional choices are important, but can be curated and individualized. It doesn't have to be awful. And that the power of community is immense and incredulous and can really help curate the change that we so desperately need for midlife care. And so how can people keep up with you?
Yeah, they can go to my website, hellohotflash.com. There you can learn more about our community and join the community as well. And you can also listen to the podcast episodes where I've interviewed amazing doctors like yourself who educate women on what they need to know to help navigate menopause.
So I'm going to tell you one of my favorite quotes because that's what I'm feeling this morning. It's been a little crazy. Well-behaved women never or rarely make history. Be a disruptor because the status quo has never served anyone. You can keep up with me on Instagram at Somi Javed MD. I have a podcast, this one, The Disruptor, coming out that matches my newsletter, also called The Disruptor. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in. And thank you so much, Stephanie, for your time this morning.
Thank you for having me.